Hey, what's going on, everyone? I apologize for the late start. The something always happens when you want to start right on time. Something always happens to set you back. Okay, so I'm gonna attempt to keep it nice and tight this morning. Let me make an announcement over on my original channel. My computer wanted to update, and it's better if your computer updates so that there's less freezing and less extra things going on when you're trying to stream. Yeah, it's the weeks are long now with this. I'm going to be discreet here, but with this go back into the office full time thing, the weeks are long. Everything is on accelerated time. Rest is important, and it's just different. Okay, let me AB Media salute to you, the political pundit of the Black Manosphere, that collective and sector. Let me and I'm actually gonna the featured video is actually going to come from there. Well, it didn't it's not from there, but it was shown there by the master teacher. So I'm going to defer to him and credit him for sharing that with the group. And it was a thing where I said, how can I not show this on my channel? Because this has come up in numerous ways uh, uh, in my endeavors here. So let me do this. Okay, there is math. So, so I'll start with the question: is the United States how far behind in the sciences is the United States? All right, so give that a like. Let's see. The United States is behind in a lot of things. Today, we're hearing a lot about tariffs, reciprocal tariffs, efficiencies, uh, uh, stronger borders, all of it. There's just so much information to keep track of. Okay, that announcement is there. I'm going to play the intro and then I'm going to dive in and I'm going to try to keep this one nice and tight because time is tight today for me. But thank you, you guys. Thank you for you STEM guys and you people who are interested in science for continuing to come back and support me here and continuing to come and hang out and hear about these topics and learn about these topics which some folks consider mundane and unexciting. I'll see you on the other side of the intro.
Um, so Anwar, I see you have the periodic tables on your chest.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that all about? Why are you walking around with a chemistry chart on your chest?
Well,
out.
Cheryl, so this channel is a STEM channel. So when I was conceiving of it and figuring out how to grow it, I figured I should have some t-shirts to go with it. So
Okay.
the periodic table is critical to most of the scientific fields.
Welcome to Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. Science and technology are all around us, all of the time, and there are always science and technology stories to tell.
There are always science and technology stories to tell. I think StreamYard might have cut off the back end of that. Hey guys, please like, share. Please definitely hit that like button no matter how long you stay. But if you're here, please smash that like button. And if you think there's some value in this, please consider sharing it. So everybody, welcome back to Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar. And yeah, over here I talk science. Okay, the equalizer is here, and we can get this party started. Okay, so this stream is going to be based upon a video from China Business Insider. I got that from the master teacher. There isn't time in the week for a working class Joe like me to watch everything. There's so much news. There's so many updates. There's so many things to watch. It's a short video, so I'm gonna put a few fun tidbits in front of it before we get into that. The first one is this, and maybe I shouldn't show this live, but hey, it's a science and technology channel. I talk about all things science and technology over here, whether it's freezing eggs, whether it's artificial womb technology, IV fertilization, uh, uh, exoplanets, rockets, GMO crops. Everything is fair game over here. So we're going to open up with a little bit of biology and a little bit of physics. So those of you who saw my community tab, I think T. Riddler saw it, and one other gentleman saw it. But I shared something with you guys, and I should probably be a little discreet here. But I showed this, one of these guys. Chaos Rain, Mr. Roosevelt. That's an inside joke, everyone. Roosevelt. Roosevelt. Okay, I think you guys all know what these are, and I'll just be discreet here and say that no matter where you live, whether you have a nicely built, newly erected structure that you got built, or if you have an old building, or if you live in a condo unit or an apartment building, sometimes critters from Mother Nature have a way of getting in. Sometimes varmints have a way of getting in, and to protect the sanctity of your domicile, sometimes you need to trap them. Okay, and so this is a trap for a rodent, and this is a traditional snap trap, and you have to set these. Okay, there are more modern snap traps where you don't have to set them as well. There are modern traps where setting them isn't as difficult, but these are particularly effective, assuming that the said varmint wants the bait that you put on it. But there's a lot of physics in here. That's the point I'm trying to get to. So you draw the varmint in with the food, okay, and when you set this traditional snap trap, this bar here, it locks in this the snap, okay, and thank you, Tony, the lever, yeah, and it's not until you have to set this trap that you start to marvel at how much uh, potential energy and kinetic energy that goes into setting the trap, but also how the trap actually works and sends the varmint to the upper room. Okay. So it's amazing that this bar, once the lever goes back, there's a lot of strength and energy in this lever. So I think the varmint, I sound like Yosemite Sam, the varmint gets killed initially. I'm going to talk about that. But this bar locks the lever onto this plastic piece here where the morsels of peanut butter or cheese, whatever you want. And it's amazing that this bar can lock that amount of potential energy in place. Okay. And once the varmint comes in and releases the trap, that bar, it's so fast, it's so powerful, it's so swift. And if you're in another room, if you ever heard these go off, you hear the sound in the other room, and when you walk in, you see it flipped over. There's so much power in that lever that it flips the entire thing over, even with the animal on it. And I'll say just a little bit of biology. I have a science background, I have a biology background, so I've worked with mice in laboratory settings. So a mouse is it's a very, very agile and fast creature. I was wondering why God created them, but they're agile, they're fast, lightning quick reflexes. So as soon as a light comes on or someone enters the room, they're gone. Probably the same thing with a cat, but their bodies are very gel-like. Their bodies are very gelatinous, so they can fit under small spaces. They can fit through small cracks. So I imagine, I was thinking about this yesterday, when this lever strikes it, I imagine that it probably immediately crushes their vertebrae and their spinal column, but also probably just cuts off their circulation. But probably just the shock of this thing hitting the animal probably makes it expire right away. Okay. All right. That's a little fun tidbit I put on my community wall. I probably shouldn't have, if Ray Alexander thought that my place was not suitable enough to put on camera, then that probably also was may scare some individuals, particularly of the opposite gender, from potentially venturing in here. But it happens to everybody. Every now and then something shows up in your crib, in your home, that should not be there. So that's a little short talk about the physics and the biology of snap traps. Tony, thank you for calling that to my attention. The lever. Physics is everywhere. Science is everywhere. Chemistry is everywhere. Energy is a concept that comes up in chemistry, and then in physics, we learn about you. Well, if they're teaching quality science where you are and where you were, in physics, you learn about potential energy and kinetic energy, and in chemistry, you learn about chemical energy. So there are different kinds of energy. All right. Aquateki says, yeah, these can be effective as well. The varmint has to run across that surface. And yeah, Aquateki, thank you for being here. He says, salute to Dr. Dunbar in the chat. Tony says, I love physics too. Physics, yeah, we're going to talk about that at the end. And I think where the video that this stream is based on, I think one of the places where that's going is learning about physics, learning, calculus and pre-calculus and trigonometry. Those are hard. And you need specific students to learn those courses and to take those courses. And a lot of students, especially if you don't prepare them early on, those students are not going to stick with those courses, and they're not going to go into engineering and aerospace and information technology. And unfortunately, the United States seems to be in that position right now where we're not preparing a robust workforce to go into those fields. But one country is. All right, before we get to that, let's pick up with what it would be like to die on every single planet. We're going to take a quick look at Mercury, and then we'll move on. So I have this queued up to make these fun. You guys know that I've been looking at this video, what it would be like to die on every planet, and consequently, China, just like Mr. Musk is here, China is making its own preparations to go to other planets right now. So let's take a quick look at what it would be like to die or to go to the upper room on Mercury. Fair use. This video is below in the description box along with the others. Fair use.
Burn your skin. As far as the survival situation on Venus goes, it's a 1 out of 10. Would not recommend. Now this is Mercury.
The closest planet to the sun, like I haven't just suffered a massive heat incineration already? Come on, what if guy?
Well, Mercury has a little secret. It's actually extremely freezing. At least on the night side.
Surface temperature, minus 180 degrees Celsius.
Yeah, of course. I knew that. Everybody knows that. And here, I'll let you in on a little.
Did you guys hear that? Minus 100 some odd degrees. I think he said Celsius. And when you think about Mercury, Mercury is the planet that's closest to the sun. I think it orbits the sun the fastest, and it rotates very, very quickly. So when you think about Mercury, you think it's hot. I think probably on the sun side it's very hot, but on that cold side, it apparently gets very, very cold.
Secret. What if Explorers Club on Patreon is on a roll? That's right, get access to early episodes, and you can see me die. A lot. I die a lot.
Here's the thing about Mercury. Unlike its planetary neighbor Venus, it doesn't have an atmosphere. And without an atmosphere, there's nothing to trap the sun's heat and keep it close to the planet during the long Mercurian nights. Even though Mercury is just 58 million kilometers from the sun, as soon as night hits, it cools down rapidly. When you first land, you'll be okay. You could walk around and explore the planet.
Yeah, Rico, there's like a little numbness in my fingers. Is that normal?
Numbness in the extremities indicates the early stages of hypothermia.
Nah, I'm okay. It's like minus 180 degrees here, you know? Of course it's a little chilly. What a shocker.
Hypothermia would take a little time to kick in. It starts with a tingling feeling in your fingers, then suddenly you begin to shiver.
Yeah, I don't feel any shivers. Okay. Maybe I feel a few shivers, but it's not that bad.
Warning, your body temperature has dropped to 35 degrees Celsius.
Can't feel my fingers.
After 10 minutes in this extreme cold,
See this? This is a
Hold on.
400-ounce bar of solid gold. Back in the 20s, this could buy you a decent...
you'd barely be able to move.
Warning, core body temperature at 32 degrees Celsius. Return to the spaceship immediately.
Your muscles would feel stiff. You'd feel confused and cold.
There was at least 102 Dalmatians.
You'd feel extremely disoriented. Everything would slow down for you. But you wouldn't die.
Fair use, fair use. I took down my my banner for a moment so you guys could see the captioning. All right, this is almost done.
Not yet.
Warning, core body temperature now 28 degrees Celsius.
Even now, you'd still be alive. You could barely function, but you're alive. It would take about 60 minutes for Mercury's dark side to kill you. Slow, cold, and painful. But hey, at least you'd get to see some of Mercury's views before you collapsed from the extreme cold. I'd give Mercury's night side a 3 out of 10. But Mercury has a day side too, and it's burning hot. The temperature here hits 427 degrees Celsius.
So again, it has a night side and a day side, just like us. The planet rotates very, very quickly. This is the closest planet to the sun. We'll do the day side, and then I think this is just about over this part for Mercury. Fair use, fair use.
Just slightly cooler than the temperature on Venus. And it's not the intense heat that would kill you, it's extreme radiation too. You'd feel all of it the moment you stepped out of your spaceship. Your body would start overheating. If you didn't have the protection of your spacesuit, your skin would immediately get radiation burns.
My hands are burning! Ah!
It wouldn't be pretty. All that radiation would quickly damage your DNA. It takes 1/1000th of a second to kick off that process. Within the next hour, your cells would mutate and die. So make sure to wear a spacesuit, no matter how hot it feels.
Danger. Core body temperature increased to 39 degrees Celsius.
After 5 minutes of these burning conditions, you'd begin to feel the effects of hyperthermia. If your suit's cooling system were to fail, you'd experience an amount of heat you've never felt in your life.
God, it burns! My hands! It's like they're on fire! It's exactly like they're on fire!
This sudden overheating would make you nauseous. After 10 minutes, you'd be like a piece of toast. Your body temperature would hit 42 degrees Celsius, and if you've ever had a fever like that, you'd know at this point, you'd be in delirium.
I swear, there were 103 Dalmatians. Everywhere! Dalmatians everywhere!
Exactly like that.
Rico, are you a Dalmatian?
Your muscles would become weak, and your organs would start to shut down. Now you'd be unconscious, in the middle of having heat stroke and being blasted by radiation. At this point, you wouldn't have long. Hot side of Mercury rates a 2 out of 10 from me.
All right. So that was what it would be like to go to the upper room on Mercury. As a child, I spent a lot of time thinking about what it would be like on other planets. I think folks in the astronomy and astrophysics world, they spend a lot of time doing that too. We got satellites up in outer space looking at exoplanets. They've dropped scientific devices on planets like Venus. We've probably dropped them on Mercury as well, or at least taken a look at what it would be like there. The same thing with Mars. They're talking about going to Mars. That's one of Elon's projects. So that's a fun way to start this stream. That link is in the description box below. And also keep in mind, everyone, as you're looking at that, keep in mind that the Earth sits in what's called a habitable zone, the Goldilocks zone. And so what that means is that the Earth is the quote unquote optimal distance from the sun to which allows it to have an atmosphere, which allows us to have water in all three phases, liquid, gas, and solid. We have an atmosphere that filters out a lot of that radiation that you just saw. We have cloud coverage. And so, yeah, I think as I show these to you, that's something to keep in mind, is that our planet sits in what's called a habitable zone, a Goldilocks zone, which allows for life. And I think this picture here illustrates that. And then I'm going to move on because I'm watching the clock. But yeah, that distance from the sun is optimal for the life that we take for granted here every single day. A lot of us come from the inner cities, and people in the inner cities are oftentimes worried about survival, so they don't have the luxury of thinking about these things. Science. Okay, let's move on. I saw something interesting. You guys keep letting me know what you think there in the chat. I saw something interesting earlier from Christian Amanpour, and I'm just going to touch upon this briefly. This video is called the Gen X Career Meltdown: What Happens When Your Job Becomes Obsolete. I'm going to jump ahead to 7 minutes because the gentleman is talking about creatives. We know that certain whole job sectors are being wiped away, okay? And AI and automation are replacing career fields, okay? Particularly for creatives. There are things now that machines can do that we don't need humans to do. And part of the game now is figuring out how to be on the other side of that line. Shout out to Dr. Patrick Dix. He's done a lot of good work on this. I'm going to jump ahead to 7 minutes, roughly 7 minutes here. And I'll play this for a few minutes and then I will wrap this up. Passport OG, thank you for being here. You helped inspire this one as well because you posted you posted a figure on your community tab listing out the data. Okay, so thank you for being here. Okay, so this is from Christiane Amanpour's channel. I think she's associated with, or at least was associated in some way with CNN. And this is talking about Gen Xers who are caught on the transition to the fourth industrial revolution. All right, fair use, fair use. This is called Gen X Career Meltdown.
Part of the issue for Gen X in particular is what you call cursed timing. Will you talk a little bit about that? What was the curse of their time?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. You know, every generation has its burdens. And if you have a 40-year career, there's going to be technological change in your career. But, you know, let's look at the baby boomers, for example. They're now in their 60s and 70s. The more years of their career were spent in the boom times. And that meant they could have higher salaries. And that meant that they maybe, you know, if they were good with their money, they had the possibility to sock away money for retirement and buy a house. And then let's say you're Gen Z or millennials. You've seen this coming. You know, maybe you didn't get into advertising or you didn't become a freelance photographer because you saw what was happening by the time you got out of school. And you're also digitally native. And so you understand, you know, Instagram and digital technology and TikTok, and maybe you're not afraid of AI. But if you're Gen X and you're in your 40s and 50s, you are in the unhappy middle. You know, you had 10 to 15 years of a career before things started to get shaky. You're 10 years away from retirement. You know, and let's also, you know, you're dealing with children, maybe trying to pay for college education. You've got a mortgage. Maybe you're dealing with elder care. And let's also not forget that a lot of these jobs, they were fun. They were really interesting and creative, but they weren't necessarily highly compensated. You know, I mean, my first job when I got into magazines as an editorial assistant, I think I made $27,000, you know, so there wasn't an opportunity to put away money. You were compensated in other ways by getting to be artistic and creative and going to interesting parties and feeling like you were part of the culture. And so that part has gone away. And also the financial part has gone away.
So let's see, Tony. Yeah, he just spoke to this. The financial part has gone away. And I think one of the things you're hearing here is that years ago, it mattered what majors and careers you chose in college. Okay, it mattered. So if you were doing more, if you chose more of the creative type of thing that he's talking about, which AI and machines can do now, if you chose, yeah, if you chose kind of things that were out on the periphery in terms of, yeah, what machines could eventually do, then you're kind of caught in the transition right now. Dr. Patrick Dix does a lot of work on this. And I think in my discussion with Aaron Clary about 2 weeks ago on my original channel, something like this came up. We were talking more about gender relations, but in that he was talking about what jobs, what functions does our economy actually need for the country to keep going. So if you are doing one of those, you're probably buffered from a lot of this. But if you chose something that's a little more creative, a little softer, a little less tech oriented, a little less oriented with the blue collar trades and infrastructure, carpentry, electrical, plumbing. If you're not in one of those fields right now, you're probably feeling this transition over to whatever is coming next a little bit more. And right now, for those who don't know, all of you in the chat know, in the Black community, There's a lot of debate right now over Black men not going to college and going to college to a lesser degree than our female counterparts. So there are a lot of things coming to a head right now. I'm going to play a few more minutes of this, then I'm going to move on. Sal, thank you for those links. I'll try to take a quick look at those during the stream. I don't always get a chance to look at all the links you post, but you are an encyclopedia of knowledge and all things financial. So let this go a little bit, 2 more minutes. Fair use, fair use.
And I think there's a lot of grief for people and grieving over the careers that they had and trying to figure out. I mean, really why I wanted to write the piece and talk to these people is to figure out, what do you do? What do you do when this happens to you? And what are these Gen Xers doing next?
What were some of the, can you just tell me like one or two stories of the people that you interviewed for the piece?
Yeah. I talked to a former magazine editor. He had started in magazines in the early 2000s, ended up at a dream job, really, at Spin magazine as an editor and a writer. And through his time at Spin magazine, things just kept getting worse and worse. The circulation fell, the ad pages fell. Finally, the magazine went to, digital and ceased the print publication. So him and his wife, they had 2 children. They lived in a tiny New York apartment. She also worked in media. And they looked at each other and thought, what are we going to do? They ended up moving to California. He took an editorial job at a big tech company. And that job gave him the stability to really think about the next move. And he went back to school and he got his master's degree in clinical psychology.
There you go, Passport OG. Add skills. Now, I will say this. I'm going to enter this in because I think when you're showing other people's content, you have to put your 2 cents in so that it's original. It ends up being original. And so a couple things here. So the generations. So the baby boomers, many of our folks, they had a stable economy. The country still made things. There was steel. There was the auto. So they had a different financial landscape than the one that we have. And you hear about that a lot. And that, hey, our lives are different. And because our lives are different, we haven't been able to make the same choices safely the way that you all have. So that's one thing. And then the other thing is, a year or so ago, and I'm still pondering it, I pondered transitioning into a science writing capacity. Actually, I'm in one right now, but something more forward facing, like for a publication. And someone in that industry told me, yeah, it's kind of brutal right now because it doesn't pay well, and the industry is just transitioning probably in much the same way he's talking about. It's becoming more technology is playing a much higher role in it, and some of the people that were needed in previous years are not needed right now to get done what was done before. Fair use, fair use. Sick Diggy, thank you for stopping through.
And now he's a therapist working towards his state license to practice therapy. So he made that career transition. I spoke to a woman who was a prop stylist for many, many years for magazines and then for, on ad shoots. And she just took a course to be a postpartum doula. I think some of these soft skill jobs, therapy where it's analytical, being, running a business, the woman who's becoming a postpartum doula, the kind of job, the analytical skills and the interviewing and talking to people and listening that comes out of, working in media, I think can translate to a lot of other careers.
All right. So guys, that's in the description box below. This is entitled the Gen X career meltdown. What happens when your job becomes obsolete? We've all been a part of talks like this here in the YouTube streets, and we are kind of in this 4th industrial wave right now. So for the people, there are some people who are somewhat safe, though what is safety today? And then there are people who are in the more creative arenas like he just described, and their livelihoods are being wiped away. Okay. Does anybody out there know what a doula is? He just mentioned a postpartum doula. You guys know what a postpartum doula is? Well, postpartum, that's a clue right there. Does anybody know what a doula is? I'm going to read your comment in a second, Passport OG. Passport OG says, Gen Xers still have work ethic, a big advantage to compete against Asians. We can match their work ethic. That's true. But I think that with us in our later 40s and early 50s and beyond, I think the question is what's going to happen to Gen Z and Gen Alpha and those coming after us, those coming after the millennials. So a doula, I'm not. You know what? Let's just look at it right here. Okay. Over here, we learn things. I try to add value. Midwives are medical professionals who provide clinical and medical care during pregnancy, labor, delivery, and postpartum, including delivering babies and managing potential complications. Doulas, on the other hand, offer non-medical, emotional, physical, and informational support to birthing people. You guys catch that? Birthing people throughout pregnancy, labor, and postpartum, focusing on comfort and advocacy. Okay, I think the reason I'm tickled by the birthing people thing is because I think our country has wanted to get away from saying that women are a woman's superpower is delivering babies. Okay, so shout out to Mark Lamont Hill. I think that's why they put that in there. That's a holdover from, or maybe even a mainstay of our society right now in terms of not acknowledging that a woman's superpower is her God-given ability to carry children to term. So birthing people. I can't remember if Ketanji Brown Jackson said that or if it was someone else. It was someone else from politics. Was it Cori Bush? Was it? Well, if you guys can think of who it was, but it was someone from the political class who used that term. It wasn't Jasmine. It wasn't Jasmine Crockett. It wasn't birthing people. Birthing people. Anyway, and when it comes from the political class, that's dangerous because they are considered leaders for society. And if they say something that's a little bit suspect, then people are gonna trust them because they're in the political class. All right. This one is from Captain Steve. We're going to do just a little bit of aerospace before going over to China and whether or not China is whipping everybody in science and technology. For those of you who don't know, a helicopter went down in the New York City metro area. I just passed through there last weekend going to Long Island, but I was on the ground taking the Iron Horse, the train. But a helicopter went down, and Captain Steve, he's a pilot who creates content on air travel and particularly when air travel goes wrong. So he gave an analysis of this. I'm going to play a short snippet of this video talking about what may have happened to that helicopter. Akuteki says, birthing people, really? Really? Yeah. So AI is using that now. So this is a short discussion on the helicopter crash and what may have happened to that helicopter And he actually breaks down actually how a helicopter works, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to show it here on my channel, because I never really knew the actual physics behind helicopters. And if you all remember those basketball fans out there, you know that's how Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna, how they died, and the other people on that fateful day early in 2020. There's a lot of physics involved in air travel. Very used, very used. This is from Captain Steve. Whoops. Let me give us some volume here. I'll take that back. Very used, very used. This guy makes good content. If you guys aren't subscribed to him, you might want to consider subscribing to him. Very used, very used.
This helicopter. There is no radio communication. They don't even have time to get a call out. The conjecture is that either they hit something or somehow maybe the rotor on the aircraft came apart. Here's how a helicopter works. The wing, if you will, the wing on a helicopter is that rotating blade on the top called a rotor. That's the primary rotor. It's spinning at a very high speed, but the leading edge of that rotor that's spinning around is creating lift for the helicopter. So all the weight of the helicopter is lifted up on that. And there are a lot of moving parts in a helicopter. A lot of people think helicopters are unsafe because of that. I'm just here to tell you they're safe. There's just a lot of moving parts in a helicopter. The tail also has a rotor on it, and it's oriented in a different direction. It's to keep the helicopter pointing straight. Because if that rotating blade on the top would cause the helicopter to spin as well, so that tail rotor keeps the aircraft straight. At some point here, as we see the footage of the airplane kind of in slow motion coming down, or the helicopter coming down, you can see that there are parts falling off of it. The fuselage of the helicopter is actually upside down at this point, and all of the rotors are gone, and the tail section is missing.
So the fuselage, for those of you who are unfamiliar with flight, the fuselage usually refers to the actual compartment where the humans are occupying it, where the humans are occupying the vehicle. So I was looking at this and I was thinking, okay, if the thing is just falling into the water, why wouldn't the people survive? Well, if it was upside down like this and it's falling into the water, that means the water's going to hit those windows first. The water's going to come rushing in, and those humans in there are upside down. So there's actually a quick history of me. I did an internship with the U.S. EPA as an undergraduate in New Jersey, and part of that training, part of that internship involved flying on a Bell. I can't think of the name. A Huey. So we had to do something called PIG training, personal immersion gadget training. So they took us to a swimming pool, an indoor swimming pool, put on our flight suits, okay, and they put us in this apparatus. It's still scary to think about it. And they push you in, so you're in the water with a helmet on and a suit on. You're upside down, and part of the training is you have to unhook yourself, get out of the apparatus, and then swim to the top of the water. Okay, so thinking about that, you can imagine that helicopter was going down, upside down, falling straight down. Assuming those people survived the plunge into the water, they would have had to have unhooked themselves and then swam to the surface of the Hudson River. Highly unlikely. I mean, they probably died upon impact. But he said some interesting things there, which was that a helicopter has a lot of moving parts. Well, an airplane does too. It's got the wings, it's got the engines, and that tail has to do what it does. But yeah, he said helicopters have a lot of moving parts. So one is creating. There are 4 elements to flight. There's lift, there's G, there's thrust, and there's drag. Okay, so each part of the helicopter has a job to do, and if something breaks, then something's going to go wrong. And from what he said, from what that footage shows, you can see that somehow that helicopter came apart. Let's go back and finish it up. Let's see, present. Fair use. This is Captain Steve. Fair use. Fair use.
So something extremely catastrophic happened at some point right around the 900-foot mark as they're coming down towards the Holland Tunnel. My conjecture is this, and we'll find out in detail when the NTSB report comes out, but maybe one of the rotors came off. If one of the rotors came off completely, it would cause such a vibration in that airframe that it may cause the airframe to come apart. That's a possibility. What caused that rotor to come off is we're going to find out in the report when it finally gets published. Could they have hit a drone? Maybe. They clearly didn't hit another aircraft or another helicopter. We know that much, at least at this point. But they came apart in air. The tail of the airplane came off. All of the rotors came. You can see here one of the rotors separating from the airplane and falling into the river. And the whole thing turns upside down because of the weight is on the fuselage. It inverts itself, and they crash into the river. And fortunately, they didn't hit the entrance to the Holland Tunnel. That could have caused some more secondary issues. But sadly, everybody's life was lost in this tragic accident, and we don't know exactly what happened. It's a very tragic accident, folks. We're going to wait for that NTSB report to come out and tell us the rest of the details on how exactly this happened. But I just want to reassure you that it's safe to fly. Looking back over the stats about helicopter accidents in New York, there's only been 30 fatalities in the last 50 years. And that's a really incredible safety record. So if you're thinking helicopters aren't safe, no, not exactly. The stats don't back that up.
I'm going to show one more thing here, guys, before we move on to China. China. As a part of this video, he actually, this section right here, I thought this was fascinating because he talks about how there's a specific, going back to the DC crash with the American flight, there's a specific altitude that helicopters are supposed to occupy. Okay, and it's called the B field or something like that. I'm going to play that, then we'll move on to China. Then I'll wrap this up because I have to go. Fair use.
The Class B airspace, and Class B airspace looks like this, and you have to be at 1,300 feet or below, but as long as you're below that airspace, it's called a Bravo Tour, right, for that Class B airspace. So they'll keep these airplanes down below that certain altitude, and most of them are at 600 to 1,000 feet as they fly up and down the Hudson. On the one side is Manhattan, on the other side is New Jersey, and then
I'm going to back that up one more time because he shows the others, so there are different airspaces. Fair use.
Our corridor, visual flight rules up and down the Hudson River. So you have to stay below the Class B airspace, and Class B airspace looks like this. And you have to be at 1,300 feet or below, but as long as you're below that airspace, it's called a Bravo Tour, right, for that Class B airspace. So they'll keep these airplanes down below that certain altitude, and most of them are at 600 to 1,000 feet as they fly up and down the Hudson. On the one side is Manhattan, on the other side is New Jersey, and then as you go farther up the Hudson River, you actually get out into some beautiful green spaces up there.
Yeah, you could see that by air or by train. There's an interesting comment there in the chat. I'm going to read it. Of course, it comes from Aquateki. He says, I wonder what the maintenance records were for that chopper, signs of wear / metal fatigue. Yeah, so it's very concerning if your aircraft is coming apart while you're in it. But someone in the comments section of that video, part of the fun of YouTube is looking at the comments underneath the videos now. But someone said that you have to be careful. You have to be careful of taking tour helicopters, tour or private owned tour type helicopters, because oftentimes they neglect the maintenance of those vehicles. So you have to be very, very careful when you're getting on tour helicopters. So someone did actually say that in the comments section, Aquateki, in that there was probably neglected maintenance of that aircraft. All right, let's move on to China. China. We just can't seem to separate ourselves from China, whether it's microbiology and virology, or if it's tech, or if it's trade. We just can't separate ourselves from China. But in terms of trade, all of this was set up years ago through the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, through all these trade agreements that our politicians set up. But this thing, since this is a science and technology channel, this involves science education. And the question is China, or has China been preparing its population for this fourth industrial wave more effectively and more vigilantly than the United States and other nations? Has China been situating itself as the science power in the world? And if you go back to my video on my live stream on the rare earth minerals and the rare earth minerals and elements, if I recall correctly, Russia has many that we need. Africa has many of them that we need, but also China has its own deposits of rare earth minerals. Or maybe that was the purpose of the Silk Road, was to get access to the rare earth minerals and resources in Africa. But the gentleman talks about it in this video. So shout out to the master teacher, BGS. He turned me onto this. I was watching and he showed this. This is a channel itself called Inside China Business. So if you guys want to sub this channel, this gentleman here has a whole library. It looks like he's posted up over there in China, so that he has a whole library of what's happening with China, okay, which is at the forefront of what's happening with us right now in this country. So fair use. This one is 7 minutes. I'll let this one play through. I'm going to stop it at various points to talk and to react to what you guys say in the chat there. The bigger question is, what are the dangers of the United States falling behind in the STEM fields and not training up our population here properly in the STEM fields, while other countries have really put their hard hats on and really invested their financial might and their resources in training their populations up in the STEMs. Okay. And as a postdoc, I did work in a lab where I was one of 2 Americans in there. And the other, it was for the most part a Chinese lab. Very hard. They were very hardworking and conscientious people. Okay. Most of them paired off and married. And most of them were really into their work. Fair use. This is from Inside China Business.
We bump into lots of problems as we first observe how China has dominated entire supply chains for most industries in the world, and how we consider how we might wrestle some of these industries back to our home markets. It's commonly known now that China has monopolistic control over the mining and the refining of rare earth elements, for example. And these are going to be crucial to build the technologies for the rest of this century. This is the reality right now, that it's Chinese, basically all of it. And Western governments and politicians have realized this problem and are now trying to set up domestic rare earth industries in North America and in Europe. Industry insiders, international business executives, and supply chain managers, we are almost uniformly pessimistic that there's much that we can do.
So he says we are pessimistic at this point that there is much that we can do. Okay, so this is an insider, a supply chain insider. So I'll keep it going.
The structural advantages for China are simply too large to be overcome from the very top on down. Diplomacy and government spending at the very top, and the institutions that have been established all the way down, which is an entire industrial system that would need to be rebuilt in the United States. We're looking at universities today and how China has built a higher education system, how they've come from basically nowhere to lead the world in the fields that really matter, engineering and the hard sciences. The Shanghai ranking, published.
So he said something very, very important there. To lead the world in the fields that really, really matter. Okay, so that asks the question, well, what's your degree in? What's your degree in? Is it in social work? Is it in some form of literature studies? Is it in some form of basket weaving? I'm being facetious there, but from what he said just now, what your degree is in really, really matters. Not whether or not you have a degree. That's something that we spar about, and that's something that's highly that's highly touted, and people pontificate a lot about being degreed here in the United States. But what's your degree in, and do you have the ability to impact the world and the planet and the global economy?
Publishes every year their global ranking of academic subjects. They rank global universities in 55 subjects in sciences, medicine, engineering, and social sciences. Over 1,900 global universities appear somewhere in their rankings, and the GRAS is designed to consider real-world applications and impact of the universities. Objective academic indicators, in their words. They count research output, how influential that research is, international collaboration, research quality, and academic awards. As we go through their data, let's consider what this means in real time right now, where the students are going to school, where those schools are, and how good those schools are, because that's the talent that will be coming into the workforce over the next 5 years. Let's also consider for a non-Chinese, a European or an African or a kid from South America, and he's in high school now deciding where he's going to study. Also think about the families of those kids who are investing a lot of money and time for their kid to go abroad, and they want the best return on that money and time. Let's look for some good news first, such as it is. Here are the top 20 universities to study finance. Now for all these, we've got the top 20 universities, and you can go through the rankings for yourselves on the link. In finance, the United States is 8 of the top 10 and 16 of the top 20.
So this part of this breakdown is very, very powerful, because he says, hey, United States, we're in the top, we're ranking very highly in finance. Okay. But then the question is, what really matters? What's putting a dent on the world? What's giving your country the upper hand, which is what a lot of this tariff stuff is about. Where is our country situated? What are we producing? Okay, and you're degreed, but what does your degree mean? What does it represent? How is your degree helping your country? How is your degree helping your community? How is your degree helping the world right now as we're living in it? All right.
And that stands to reason. The United States borrows and spends more money than any country in the galaxy, and that's what finance is. Law schools, the United States is 20 of the top 20 in law. We have more lawyers than the rest of the world combined, and so our best universities have entire departments dedicated to teaching us how to sue each other.
Being a lawyer is a very, very prestigious profession in this country, especially in this region that I live in. Many of our politicians are lawyers. Our presidents, many of our presidents have law degrees. They studied law. Our senators, many of them were lawyers. Okay. So we're pretty big on politics in this country. But where's the country ranking with the rest of the world in terms of being a world power anymore?
Psychology and treatment of mental health issues is a giant industry in the United States. And so there are lots of American flags in the rankings for psychology. Rare earth mining is a combination of engineering and scientific disciplines. Industry experts refer to the fields as the 3 M's: mining and mineral engineering, metallurgical engineering, and material sciences. I'm going to add 2 more: logistics and transportation, because we need to get the ores from the mines to the refineries, and then from the refineries to the factories.
So guys, what are the bedrock subjects of what he just described? For those of you out there, what are the bedrock subjects of what he just described? Off the top of my head, I can think of 3 or 4. Chemistry, physics. I mean, we can start to parse out the mathematics in there, calculus, trig. I mean, but I'm thinking as a biological scientist, when he just said what he said, I'm thinking chemistry and physics. So if you don't have people, thank you, Akoteki, geology, that as well. Okay, so if you're not in any of those areas, Passport OG says trig and calculus. If you're not in any of those, you're not in the game. If your people can't do any of these things, you're not in the game.
And let's also include chemical engineering, which involve the processes of refining these ores. So these are 5 core disciplines that are required. And to build a mining industry, we'll need hundreds of thousands of engineers, experts at the top of these fields here to make it all go. Going back to the rankings to find these, here are the top 20 universities in the world for mining and mineral engineering.
This part right here, this part right here is gangsta. But it's also very sobering, and it drives home what he's talking about and the whole point of this video and the title of this video.
All we're doing is counting the flags. Australia has 5 of the top 20 spots. The US is at number 20. And Chinese universities are 14 of the top 20 in mining and minerals. Next up is metallurgy, 8 of the top 10. Materials science is next, and American schools show up in the top 10, but China's got half of the top 20. Here's transportation science and technology, logistics, moving stuff around. Finally, let's see chemical engineering. China's 7 of the top 10 and 16 of the top 20. Looking through some of these other rankings, it's shocking to see where things are heading in the most important scientific fields. Instrument science, China is 19 of the top 20. This is the top 20 for telecommunications engineering. This one is for nanoscience and nanotechnology. This is all China, except for Georgia Tech at number 13. And Georgia Tech's top nanoscientist just left Tech and is now in Beijing. So look for Georgia Tech to not be there in the 2024 rankings for nanotechnology. Stanford and MIT don't even make the top 20. Nobody can touch us Americans in certain fields. If you want to be a tort lawyer or a trader on Wall Street or make movies for Pixar, or work with people with mental illnesses, we've got the schools for you, and you're crazy to consider going anywhere else. But if you're looking for the best places to study engineering or energy or logistics, or quantum computing or nanotechnology. These are the rankings here that you're looking at. And let's remember again the smart kids from good families in South America or Africa or East Europe. Already, they're much more likely to be doing business with China than the United States anyway. China is their biggest trading partner. So where are those kids more likely to make valuable contacts which will be helpful to them in their careers when they return home to South America or Asia or Africa? Where are they much more likely to be in a class taught by professors and faculty with recent real-world experience working in South America or Africa? And these Chinese universities cost about 10% of what those families will need to go to Stanford or MIT or Michigan.
Shout out to Michigan. That was, yeah, you mentioned my school. But that point right there is huge. So China's emphasizing the most important aspects right now in terms of empowering their labor workforce at only a fraction of the cost.
So where do we think all those kids are going to go? This is Dali, Yunnan province. Be good.
Everyone who hears these words of Jesus and acts on them is like a wise man who built his house on the rock.
Okay, I think that's the end. So I'm going to end that with heading into this fourth industrial wave. Okay, what have we been doing in this country? I mean, what are we doing? What have we been doing? The people in charge of properly situating us for what's coming, what the hell have they been doing? Okay, what have they been spending their resources on? Did anyone not see this coming? And even if they did, where have all of our collective attentions and yeah, what have we been doing? What the hell are we doing in this country in terms of education? Okay, well, now it's a brave new world, and it looks like China is in the driver's seat. So I think in large part what we're seeing happening with at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, maybe this is an attempt to kind of keep up or to try to keep ourselves in a competitive place. You know, can you argue with trying to change the direction of the Department of Education? Maybe it's too late for that, but clearly China has had its eye on the ball and has been focused on where things were going and what the global economy would need, while we've been focusing on other things, a lot of social things, changing social paradigms, relations between the genders, trying to make the genders the same. All of these things, this whether if you take that as misogyny, if you take that as keeping one gender down or whatever, all of these things eventually come back and intersect together. Okay. Okay, hour and 9 minutes. I'm going to read some comments here. I don't have time to open things up. I have to get to the post office. If anyone wanted to make a donation to the channel, a Cash App and PayPal, here I'm not monetized. This is review for a lot of you guys. This was shown earlier in the week, but how could I not capture it here, having a science and technology channel? But there was a lot said in that video from China Business Insider. Let me close that. I'm going to read some of your comments here. Let's see. Passport OG says out of 45 presidents, 27 were lawyers prior to their time in office. Yeah, many of the others were military guys, generals like George Washington, and I think was Dwight Eisenhower. Was he a general? Well, he was a military serviceman. They were military servicemen to different degrees. I don't think George W. Bush ever saw combat. Let's see. In 27, yeah, that's about half. No, that's more than half. 27 times 2 is 54. That's more than half of our U.S. presidents have been lawyers. Professor Black Ops, Cybersecurity for the People says I hang out with contract lawyers. I do cybersecurity, RFP, RFI, science. This was the question. What were the bedrocks of that gentleman talking about in terms of where China is situating itself or has situated itself? Some of the subjects you guys mentioned were science, geology, trigonometry, calculus. Yagami says physics, chemistry, geology, engineering. He said math is always the bedrock. Yep. Tony says mostly China. T. Riller's here. Passport OG says go Jackets. Yeah, and from what he implied, our STEM schools, many of our STEM schools, at some point won't be able to compete with what China's doing. When you think of Georgia Tech and MIT and Stanford, you think, oh, it's Georgia, MIT, Stanford. But from what he described, they're blowing us out of the water. Tony said, wow, the U.S. is on the receiving end of a brain drain. AV says, all degrees females want to get. I think that was what have we been doing in terms of education and the allocation of resources. Please smash that like button. I'm going to wrap this up soon. Yagami says, being so competent in chemistry / chemical engineering and material science / engineering can enable a country to bypass many international limitations in trades of materials and transformations of those. See, competent. Okay, so this kind of gets to this what the country's been focusing on, the price of feminism, and now even some of them regret it. He says it went to propping girls up no matter what the cost. Now they regret it. Well, so that gets to, for those who are looking and saying misogyny. Yes, there has been an effort to get more girls in STEM and the sciences, but one of the questions you have to ask is when you try to level everything related to gender, you have to ask the question, just from a natural standpoint, aside from physical strength, because men are biologically, in most instances, physically stronger. Aside from that, are the genders more well suited for certain things? Are there natural proclivities for each gender towards certain subjects? Even though you try to level it and say and give girls a chance to get into certain things, will they still naturally aggregate in certain areas? And I think it was was it Iceland or Norway that came up with an answer for that, and that yes, even when you give girls and women access to STEM and in the fields where men have traditionally dominated, they will still aggregate over into other areas. So I think that's for us in this country, I think that's worth considering. Yeah, you can't undo nature. And that's not to say there are no girls interested in science and technology, and there are girls who are in those fields, but you have to also think about with the majority. You have to think about the majority. You have to think about what do the trends show. Okay. And you want to compete we're competing with other countries in this world we're in. Let's see. Passport OG says American kids want to be streamers. 2 pi radians is Greek to most college grads these days. Yep. 2 pi. Black Uru Strikes has entered the building. He says the country has allowed the most rich and powerful to loot the productivity of everyone else until the bottom falls out. This has included profit from human failings and obsolescence. Black Uru, thank you for stopping through. He says that explains our woeful national STEM programming. While Xi Jinping is a chemical engineer. AV Media. Yeah, and a lot of STEM guys, a lot of STEM people, I'm thinking about Robert F. Smith, they don't stay in the STEM fields. They take that expertise and they go and create businesses. So you have a lot of potential business people, a lot of people who can start businesses. If they don't get this training, then they won't go on to create those businesses like Vista Equity Partners, which is what Robert F. Smith started. So she says, generally girls aren't interested in the STEM fields. Okay, to you out there who are saying you guys are engaging in misogyny, we're not saying girls shouldn't have an interest in it or they shouldn't participate in it. In science, we look at the trends, we look at data and relationships and what are the proclivities. So you anti-misogyny people, those people get triggered pretty easily. The anti-misogyny people. We're not engaging in misogyny. Passport OG says, "Gig, are you serious? It makes sense though. My old major. Oh, Norway or in Sweden. Okay, so I think this goes back to one country actually documented where the genders actually fell out. Yeah, I know it was one of the North Atlantic countries over in near Europe. Yagami says, indeed, he is from Tsinghua University, nonetheless. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. T. Riddler says, at Black Uru Strikes, how have they looted the productivity of everyone else? And then Cleveland Smith says, 20 plus working public education, 20 plus years. I think that's what that's saying. 20 plus years working in public education. You can't get someone with a degree in engineering or math to be a teacher. Why? The pay. Cleveland, thank you. That's a good point as well. Why the pay? And I work in New Jersey where we pay teachers high salaries. I think that also goes back to, that's related to my discussions with Dr. Tiasan Johnson about regarding getting more Black men into teaching. For teachers, salary certainly is a huge consideration for any career. One of the determinants for students choosing that career is the salary. T. Riddler says, Cleveland Smith, I'd imagine there would be more of a financial incentive for those STEM professionals to at least teach at the community college level. So that's something for our political leaders to think about. Should we be throwing more resources to getting our best and brightest STEM professionals into teaching? The Equalizer says the stats are the stats. I don't waste time. That's why he's the Equalizer, arguing about policies, facts, and statistics. And I think I'll probably wrap up here with Black Uru's response to T. Riddler. He says, in relation to inflation, wages have been flat for 50 years, even though worker productivity has increased and the gap in wealth between the top 10% and everyone else has grown. T. Riddler, is that satisfactory for you? Passport OG says, I have a chemistry degree. I'd love to teach, but at 50K in 2025, no effing way. You know what? I'm going to be discreet here. Being a Fed, facing all the upheaval and the turmoil we're facing, that's something that's crossed my mind as well. Being an educator, my father is he's a part-time educator now in his golden years, but teaching, actually, if you have students who want to learn, teaching is fun. Teaching can be fun, but a major consideration is obviously the salary, but also the lifestyle. I've seen my father, grading papers and doing all those things on the weekends. Would I want to do something like that? But the actual teaching, the transfer of knowledge, seeing that light bulb turn on in a student, giving a struggling student that confidence to do it when they didn't have it before, that's a lot of fun. So teaching can be fun if you're in the right place and getting compensated for it. T. Miller says passport OG would be an acceptable salary, an acceptable entry salary for your skill set. And then the equalizer says adjunct professor position. Passport OG, I'll let you answer, and then I'm gonna wrap up because I have to run. So Sal, yeah, a lot of folks do go that route. But how do you get a critical mass of people to make a dent in what's missing? I did do a little bit of that, just once a year though. Passport OG still out there? We'll end on that answer if you're still out there. Black Uru Strike says, Passport OG, the money is largely why the educational system, the educational systems are so gynocratic. It's easier to underpay women, especially when most teachers are white females married to high earners. So again, for you guys are engaging in misogyny, people out there, for those who are saying you guys are engaging in misogyny, no, we're not. A part of this discussion is often that the majority of your teaching force is female. Okay. The majority of your teaching workforce is female. We could get into the why that happens and why that's happened, but that's just the reality of the situation. All right. And then here's Passport OG's answer. He says, T. Riddler, my skill set is now select. Now bi/trilingual business is best in some form. All right, everyone, I have to bid you all adieu. Let me check my phone here to see if by chance anything came over on the PayPal side. It's all good. Oh, Passport OG, thank you for it looks like, let me just check to make sure here. Okay, I see what happened. So, Passport OG, thank you for that generous Cash App. My business Cash App and my personal Cash App, they're almost identical. My business Cash App has 76 on the end. My personal doesn't. So it's just a matter of transferring that over. But Passport OG, thank you for that generous Cash App. So the comments keep rolling in here. Black Uber strikes. I'll do a few more. It's 12:07. Gigami says, from over a decade ago, available on YouTube. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Passport OG says, I'm the principal of a public school. I'll start you at 90K with a pension and a progressive salary increase. T. Riddler, that's very generous of you. The Equalizer says your property taxes will need to increase teacher salaries. Thank you, Sal, for giving us a real world perspective on that. Black Uru Strike says 80% of the teachers of Black boys in public school will be white women. Less than 4% will be Black men. Before, let's see, 1 hour, 24 minutes. Let me go back because Sal Sal did his due diligence and dropped these in the chat, and I think I should show them, even though I didn't have a chance to dig in. But I'm going to bookmark these and save them. So Sal showed this. Thank you, Sal. Let's see. He showed this one. He shared this one. These links are in the chat right now if you guys want them. College graduation statistics. Okay, these relate to something I shared earlier in the stream. He also shared student loans owed and securitized. Okay. I will. Okay, looks like from 2008 to now that number is pretty much linear. Okay, so that's been a linear increase there. And then the last one is this. Over 9 million student loan borrowers could see their credit scores tank as delinquencies are poised to hit record highs. That was just published on March 26th. So yeah, I need to, maybe I'll go to the coffee shop later and read through these. But if you guys want to take a look at these, those are there in the chat right now. All right, everybody, I'm going to wrap this up because I have to go to the post office. I am not going to, well, I might do a live early next Saturday. I will be in Buffalo. I'm gonna sprint through this. Next week is actually my first ever book signing. So I'm going to Buffalo for Easter. I didn't see my mother for her birthday, but I am squeezing in a book signing. So this is my book, The Engineers, guys. I think most of you guys have heard the sales pitch and the overview. I'm not going to give that right now, but if you guys want a copy, I'm selling the hardcover from my operation here in my condo unit. The hardcover, I'll sell it to you guys for $25, and this paperback for $22. Just use one of those payment methods there in the ticker, and make sure you send me your mailing info along with the name you want me to address it to and sign it to. Me and Money Motion had a little dialogue afterwards about that. But my high school, coincidentally, was a STEM school. It was a STEM high school. That's what the title is, the Engineers. That was our school nickname. So I got my STEM training. I started my STEM training early, even though early on I didn't really know what I was doing. So I think I will end with Cleven's comment here. He says, see if your state has career technical education programs. For example, in New Jersey, you can become a certified teacher without a degree. You usually work at a vocational technical school. Cleveland, where do you, Cleveland, I'm having Dr. Tiasan Johnson over. I'm hosting him on Monday night over on my original channel, and we're going to talk about what's the current topics in Black masculine. Let me slow down. We're going to talk about current topics in Black masculinism on Monday night at 7. I'd be curious to hear what you think about this whole conversation about Black men not going to college and the vocational trades, and just as an educator. You did say you're an educator, right? Yeah, 20 plus years working in public in public education. I'd be curious to hear what you think about all this. And maybe at some point I can host you, or you can just feed some intel behind the scenes. You can contact me here if you feel so inclined. If not, then you can hang out in the, where however you see fit. But use that second email address there, or you can find me on X or on Instagram, and you can find me on Facebook. You can find me pretty much everywhere, LinkedIn. But I'd be curious to hear what you think about Torre and all of this stuff, all of this stuff surrounding Black men bailing out of the white collar college route. Okay. Yeah. So he says, no doubt, fam, I'm down. Yes, I'm hosting Dr. T on Monday. I'm going to ask him about that. But as a veteran of the education system, I'd love to hear what you have to say about any of that as well. Kareen, thank you for being here. Sounds like you were listening but haven't commented. You said great discussion as always. Share this, especially to parents who care about their children's futures. All right, guys and gal. Next week, a science stream, a maybe. But yeah. But thank you for being here. And yeah, this is what's going on with our country and our educational system and our community. Black Uru says, Black Uru is going to give the benediction. Shout out to Mr. Z, who says, Black Uru, would you please give the benediction? This will be the benediction here. And this is relating to the Black men not going the white collar college route. He says, it's a red herring. The New York Times article from which this debate derives did not even present full and earnest statistics of Black male college attendance. So there you go. Black Uru is getting the final word, and that is the benediction. All right, everyone, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Again, next week for me is a maybe. I'll be in Buffalo to do my book signing and to visit family and to celebrate Easter. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend. Please leave any comments below in the comment section. Please smash that like button. Please like, share, and subscribe. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you the next time. Yeah, the fourth industrial wave. Yeah, everything is, yeah, even at my current position, using computer models and mathematical models, that's even infiltrating my current capacity in the public sector. And I've experienced that over the last 2 weeks for one of my projects. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I'll talk to you next time. Have a good weekend. Have a good Saturday. Bye-bye.